Sorry, my battery went low, so we're continuing. I believe this is the fourth video. As I was saying, you want to look over each item that you take off to make sure that it is serviceable. Check out each piece to make sure it is serviceable. Because cuckoo clocks have open areas, the chains and the weights causes dirt, hair, and other stuff that go up into the movement. So you want to remove all that garbage out of the clock as you go. And after you clean the clock, as you can see on this pivot, there's dirt inside the portion of the gears. I'm having trouble thinking of the names due to the medicine I take. But after you clean the clock, before you install it back in, you take a toothpick and run it up and down to get all that garbage out of the teeth. And you also want to polish up your pivots if you can. You can use a Dremel. People who do this for a living have a lathe that they use with an Arkansas stone to polish up the pivots. You can put this in a drill if that's all you have and polish up the pivots. I don't have a lathe, so I do whatever it takes. You could put this in your Dremel and polish up the pivots, but you have to be very careful when you do it. You can also take your Dremel with a wire brush. You would want to use wire on wire and brass on brass when you're cleaning these parts. But anyway, you take all the parts out, and then you're going to put them in your cleaning solution. Here's the flywheel. Here's the warning wheel. This warning wheel, and I believe I'm calling this right, has a pin right here that in order to stop the cuckooing, this pin has to hit the lever that you took out. This lever right here that you took out, it will hit this part of the metal to stop the cuckooing. This part continues. This is for the rack and snail method. This catches the other portion of the clock to allow it to strike. And I will go over to that later so you know what I'm talking about. People who do this for a living, they're going to remove all the parts on this clock to make sure it all gets cleaned well. This piece right here has this cam on it, which it's got to do with the cuckooing, and it spins. This cam has compression fit in there, and it has that wire. Again, I'll talk about this later, but I'm not going to take all these parts off. I bought myself an ultrasonic cleaner. I mix up my own solution Um, what I suggest is prior to you taking the clock apart, you turn on the heater. The heater needs about 20 minutes or so, and I would suggest that you set it to 50 degrees Celsius. I bought this ultrasonic cleaner. It's a 30-liter cleaner. It does more than what I needed to do. It will clean almost every movement that I have. I paid about $120 for it. But once you got the heat set, you got to set it to, you got to push the button to set the heat on. And after it heats up, you set your timer. I would recommend anywhere between 10 minutes to 15 minutes to clean in the clock. And I'm just cleaning the movement. We'll continue the video after the movement's clean from the cleaner. There's a couple things I'm going to talk about while the movement is cleaning. Get yourself a roll of wire. When you go to put the movement back in, you want to test the movement for a little bit. Instead of connecting the clips onto the chain, just cut you off a piece of wire, attach that to the chain to attach to your weights to make sure that the movement is going to run right, because it's a pain in the butt removing the clips that hold the weights onto the chain. So these clips right here. So just use a piece of wire and attach that to the chain to attach it to the weights. Also want to talk about the musical portion of a clock. I got this out of a different movement, and you want to make sure these things are cleaned up. They get a lot of grime in the gears on them, so use a toothpick and clean them up. When activated, and I'm again trying to do this with two hands, this wire here is what I was telling you about, that the movement itself grabs a hold of this wire and it activates the music portion of the clock. And once it's released, you can hear the music turning. If you put it on a flat wooden surface and you turn it, it will be louder. A lot of people ask about the comb of how to adjust these. My personal experience, I use a business card and cut a business card the same width of this comb and put it between again, I can't think of the name of the parts because of the medicine I take. Put it between the comb and this wheel, push the comb up against the business card, tighten the screws down, making sure that the comb is properly aligned between this drum. That way, if there's teeth on the right side of the drum, that the comb teeth is going to hit the teeth on this comb, as well as on the left side of the drum. And then tighten it up. You'll know that it's properly when you could turn it easily. You can make up a mock chain and set it like I'm doing here, and you know it's properly set when the chain itself, I keep stopping this thing with my fingers, you know it's properly set when the chain, the weight is pulling it. Now this one isn't properly set because it still stops a little bit, so I need to do minor adjustments to allow it to properly move. But do all this if you ever work on them outside of the clock. This is the lever that is activated, and this lever goes into this hole when it's stopped. There's a spring that's on this lever that pulls the lever back. That way when the music is done, it goes into that hole. Also, the man which goes outside, his portion of him, the wire that's on the gear here has to go into that notch. If the man is still sticking outside when the music is done, that's because this wire is not in this notch. In order to fix that, there's a screw that you loosen up and move this portion of the gear to make sure that wire goes into that notch. That way the man goes back inside the clock.